Alright, today we're going to be doing a little review on a Nanawa Omira. This is a 150 grit stone. Grit is kind of a subjective thing in my opinion when it comes to Japanese waterstones. 150 grit stone could be comparable in scratch pattern to probably about the 320 shaft in here, but its speed is a little more. It's better suited for carbon steels, but it has a pretty good working range that it can work with. The reason I have the Shapton out here is because I was leveling this stone out, and I thought it would be a good time to maybe do a small review on the Omira. This stone doesn't get much play. It's a little older, it's a little more traditional style of stone, gets pretty muddy, doesn't have a lot of grinding feel to it in most cases, but in my opinion it's one of the best stones you can have if you sharpen any carbon steel knives. And to me, a stone has its select steels that it can work with, like these Shapton Pros here. To me, these work better on a lot higher wear resistant steels like S30V and SG2, M4, all stuff like that. They just seem to have so much better cutting power and a better sharpening ability. If you try and sharpen something lesser like a VG10 or an AUS8 or some softer stainless, they just don't seem to have the same effect. So today I'm going to show you, you can kind of see right here there's a small dip still left in the stone. The Shaptons are known to be very hard ceramic stones. Usually you need a diamond plate to lap them, but I'm going to show you how to use the Nanawa Omira to correct this stone. And you'll see as we get started here that this Omira is going to eat away through the stone rapidly. So as you can already see, we have a thick blue paste built up on the surface of the Omira stone here. And I'll just keep checking some progress here. And that about did it. There's only a little tiny spot right there that needs to be leveled out. I'm going to flip the stone around. Okay, so there we have it. I have my freshly leveled and trued Shapton stone. I used this one yesterday to sharpen a S35V unfolder. Worked beautifully for that, and I just needed to level it up today. So now after I've flattened the surface out, I'm going to go ahead and rub on the sides a little bit, take off the sharpness, and that also helps prevent any chipping along the edges. So there you have it, and one of the reasons I'm showing this today is because I do have a DMT extra coarse here, but it has been used for so much sharpening and stone lapping that it has a little bit of a reflection to the surface that you can actually see the worn diamonds on it. So I've decided to use a couple other different methods recently. Sometimes they actually work a little bit better depending on the stone. Figured I'd share that with you today. So now that we have this stone lapped, I'll show you one more pretty hard stone here. This is my Nubatama bamboo extra hard stone. It's kind of worn through there. This stone is pretty tough. It'll eat up most other stones, but again, this Nanawa Omira works pretty good to level it. See, it just releases a lot of abrasive quickly, truing the stone, making it ready for use. Alright, got that done. And this is my Spyderco Endura, and it's got a super blue core, laminated VG or 420 J2 on the sides, or J1. I'm sorry about that. It's got a little dull today from some work I was doing, so I'm going to touch it up. Don't really like a very high polished edge on this knife. It's actually only at 1,000 grit right now, and I'm going to use this stone and maybe another stone to sharpen it. This stone, even though it's 150 grit, it leaves a much finer scratch pattern. It doesn't really dig into the steel heavy. It does still cut fast, but I kind of similarize it to the Chaucera 400 a little bit. It's a little coarser than the 400 Chaucera, but it has that smooth feel that's deceptive in the cutting speed. So you get a real smooth feeling coarse grit stone that removes metal really quickly. And like I said, with this stone it's going to be a lot better for carbon steels and low alloy carbons. Being that the steel is pretty hard, I'm having to guess maybe a 61 or 62 on the Rockwell scale. I'm not going to really get any mud production here, or a lot of abrasive release. And the stone has a very smooth and gliding feel to it. Well, I shouldn't say smooth, it is pretty coarse. But the nice thing is you can get a very sharp edge off of this stone. Alright. And then directly off the stone, no stropping, it'll easily slice through the newsprint. Truthfully, that's pretty much how I'm going to leave it. I got a little denim strap over here that I made up, and this one has a little bit of diamond compound on it, and I have another one that's got some Mother's Mag polish on it. I think I actually prefer the one with the Mother's Mag polish on it. It works really good to maintain an edge between stone, and it seems to work well on just about any steel. Okay, so here we have that. I exposed a little burr that I'm just going to take back this way. Oh, I forgot something. I got this little felt block here, and I've never been a fan of dragging your edge through a block. I really felt it did a whole lot, but that thing is pretty good. I found at the higher grit finishes, if I'm up around a 3,000 to 5,000 grit, it'll actually remove the very fine burr, and it makes it really easy to finish directly on a stone and not need further steps to remove the burr. Alright, I'll go back to the felt block here. I'll make two little passes through it like so. Kind of shrug the burr up there. I'm going to go ahead and make one more pass kind of at an angle. It seems to knock the burr down more than anything. When you're at a coarse grit like this, all the way up to say about 1,000 grit, when you run it through that felt, it doesn't seem to take it off like it does with a finer grit. It just kind of folds it over, probably helping to weaken it a little bit, but I'm not sure yet if using it at a coarse grit has really any advantage in helping remove the burr or weaken it. that's that for right now. We are pretty good on this. I'm going to do a little stropping on it later. But for now, for demonstration purposes, it's more than sharp enough and it's done its job. Alright. So next up we have a BK2, and I'm doing a little bit of a convex grind on this. I'm going to show you how I start out doing a convex grind high up on the blade. So we've already started sharpening this one, and we start all the way up here at this top line and work all the way down to a 0 bevel. And I've taken and ground this flat on its sides like so, to the point where it is about zeroed out this bevel all the way up to the tip. And now I am starting to add a little convex geometry into the blade. So I'm going to get started on finishing that up right now. It's doing okay. I'm going to use the Nagara here to try and get a little slurry up. It's a Chaucera leveling or cleaning stone right there that I was using. And I'm just putting a little grit on the surface to see if we can't agitate the stone, as I like to call it. Gotta be careful, sometimes it'll grab. Making sure that my grind pattern on the side is all good. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is, I got the knife flat on the bevel, and as I go back and forth like this, I'm going to slowly start raising the spine like that. What that's doing is taking the primary grind and blending it into the secondary grind. Now this is not the perfect stone. One of the kind of the flaws that I've noticed with it is if you do any leveling like that and don't relap it with something coarse, you can kind of smooth out the stone a little bit and it glazes it a little bit. So with that in mind, let's see if we can correct that. I don't don't know if this will help me out. Oh, I just ate that up. Alright. 60 grit Nubatama stone. This should definitely rough it up. Alright. Get a little aggressive with it. See what we got. So much better. Got a little slurry on the surface here. That helps. Now sometimes the stone gets real muddy, sometimes it doesn't. I've never really unlocked a way to control that. With a lot of stones you can control how much mud is produced and how you work it with that individual blade, but this stone kind of seems very particular about which steels it'll interact with and how it sharpens them. Some are much better than the others. So we're about finished there. Got a pretty good geometry flowing, a nice scratch pattern, nice and even. I'm starting from the heel right now and moving all the way to the tip and back, and what that's doing is giving me a nice even grind pattern so I can see if there's any flaws in the blade, any scratches that I've missed. Okay, that's about good for that one. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next stone here. And let's see. Try and move directly to the shaft in 1K, but we might have to use an intermediate stone here. Alright, so far so good. It seems to be working okay. Keep going with this and see how it does for us. pretty good. Now we can move to this side. Alright, this 1K shafting is doing excellent at removing the grind marks and polishing the edge down, getting it ready for our next stone. Problem child spot up here I'm working on, but we're going to have that taken care of here in just a second. I know I've mentioned it before, but I like to flip my stones around as I'm using them, pretty much regardless of how wear resistant the stone is, how hard it is, how soft it is. I always like to flip them around, that way I'm getting just more even wear on the stone. It really helps when you're trying to level it out and you're just not grinding down one side of the stone, but kind of leveling out the whole stone. It's important to level this stone. All shafting stones I've found, because they're so hard, if you don't stay on top of keeping them flat, it makes it that much harder to level them when they do go out of flatness.